and welcome to Half the Battle.
Main character May goes on, and it's all about Duke.
And today we'll be taking a look at the character. Specifically, we'll be looking at the file cards.
So, who is Duke? Actually, I'll do you one better. Why is Duke? Why did this character get the code name Duke? I mean, Duke is a rank in nobility. It doesn't sound very real American hero, now does it? Who's ever heard of a badass Duke?
Except the Duke of Wellington, obviously.
Well,
to explain the name Duke, we have to go back in time.
All the way back to John Wayne. His nickname was the Duke, so he made the term popular. But then, why did he get the nickname? Well, because it was the name of his dog when he was a kid. Yeah, he and Duke the dog, who was a very big Arundel Terrier by the way, were so inseparable they called him Little Duke, and considering his real first name was Marion, he didn't really object to that. So it's a we named the dog Indiana situation. In fact, this was probably the basis for that gag.
And that's where Duke got his name. From John Wayne's dog.
Anyway, his real name is Conrad Hauser, and his rank is E8 or Master Sergeant. The file card says he enlisted in 1967. That would make him around about 70 years old now, at the time this video is made anyway.
Yeah, feel old yet?
He was already fluent in 3 languages then, and learned Chinese in the Army Special Language School. He joined the Special Forces, went through 4 Special Forces schools in fact, and operated in Vietnam during the war. He turned down a commission to become an officer and commands by winning respect. On this first file card, he is the acting first sergeant of the G.I.Joe team.
Yeah, acting. But I have a feeling that the position became permanent over the next 30 years or so.
The card also states the reason why he turned down a commission. It's because he believed an officer's job is to survive to take the blame while the enlisted take the risks. And he didn't want any of that. So he became first sergeant of the Joes.
But what does that rank mean?
Well, a first sergeant or first shirt or top shirt is the highest US Army NCO rank position that is still in a direct hands-on leadership setting. They are in charge of all the enlisted of a unit, up to the size of a company. Often a commanding officer will give a first sergeant duties and authority usually reserved for officers, even if said officers are present.
That's about it for the first file cards, but boy do we have a lot of them to go through yet.
His second file card is the Tiger Force one, and it's a bit different. On his first card, his military specialties were airborne infantry, artillery, and small arms armorer. The Tiger Force one omits the artillery mention, and he's a small arms repairman now. That last part is probably because repairman is a bit more descriptive than armorer. The bulk of the text still refers to his language skills and that he served in Southeast Asia, but omits any specific date. It also mentions him freeing POWs, so technically this could be a Rambo 2 situation, meaning that could have all happened after the Vietnam War ended, making him younger.
It's all a bit convoluted, I grant you.
The second part of the card calls him a living legend with tons of combat experience, and that he doesn't know the meaning of the word fear.
I guess he's never heard HCC 788 sing, because that would scare the crap out of anybody.
but we feel pretty, oh so pretty.
Duh.
The third card is from 1992 and doesn't mention anything even remotely to do with Vietnam. Probably because this figure was released after the first Gulf War, and he would be getting on in years if they kept insisting he was a Vietnam vet. His specialties have changed. He's now a ranger with military intelligence. Now, all rangers have airborne training, so that's still implied at least, but he forgot all about artillery and small arms fire.
Oh, and this time, Duke has a motto.
I'm going to rush that machine gun nest, and when I get there, all you useless profiles better be behind me.
Well, yes, I'd prefer to be behind whoever's doing the dangerous thing too.
Kidding aside though, this does call back to his original card. He leads from the front, winning respect. The bulk of the file card describes more what a first shirt is supposed to do. He's the group's disciplinarian, guidance counselor, and big brother. It's a pretty good bit of information, and true to the real world, no less, so kudos for that. The last part of the card just goes into what equipment he has, so isn't really relevant to the character. Nowhere does it explain, however, why he needs to straddle the damn rocket launcher to operate it. But it's clear they were very proud of this feature, considering he's doing it in the goddamn artwork. Up next, Desert Storm Duke from 1993 has a new motto. A real G.I. Joe should be on the front line with his men, which is where you'll find me.
Once again emphasizing how he's not an officer.
The bulk of the text even yet again mentions him turning down a commission.
It seems to me that they really wanted to justify a sergeant being in charge of a large military unit, otherwise why would they keep bringing this up?
The file card doesn't mention why he's in desert gear at all, by the way, so the fact Hasbro was taking advantage of the Gulf War remains subtext.
And those were the normal file cards. But now we go off the deep end, into deep space actually, to talk about the Star Brigade toys.
Battle Armor Duke has a new specialty, a Battle Commander, and I'm glad they restrained themselves from calling him a Space Battle Commander. Also, he has a new motto. Yeah, this guy changes mottos more than a Game of Thrones character switches sides. G.I. Joes with robotic battle armor are like M1 tanks, but we pack more firepower.
That's less of a motto and more of a brag, if you ask me.
Even in space and wearing this ridiculous thing, the card still beats the drum that Duke refused a commission. Most of the rest of the card is just singing the praises of the armor, how it's bulletproof and laserproof, gives you the strength of 10 men, etc. Though Duke does complain it doesn't have air conditioning.
Ha ha.
Lastly, there's Fishbowl Head Duke, whose card is similar to the Armor Tech one, without mentioning the robot suit, of course. So it's refused commission, blah blah, wants to be where the action is, blah blah blah.
Though there is one line that stands out.
Few G.I. Joes have vaporized Cobras with the efficiency and skill of a top-notch soldier such as Duke. Now, that is rare, a file card that actually mentions killing, well, vaporizing the enemy. A vicious way to end things.
And those were the cards from the original line. Now we'll take a look at a select few from later years to see if anything significant changed.
The 1997 file card is very detailed and easily the best thing about this horrible figure.
But even here they managed to screw up.
They give his rank as E9, which is Sergeant Major, while he's supposed to be a sergeant. In the main text of the card it even says he's a first sergeant. The card itself retells much of the original, though avoids specifically mentioning the Vietnam War or any date. It says he's the best field commander the Joes could have, and of course we can't go one card without mentioning he turned down commissions. The card from 2000 is the first one in ages to not make note of him refusing a commission at all.
Hallelujah!
The cards from 2000 are notable because they don't have any artwork. They just used pictures of the actual toys for the file cards. Talk about lazy. The text of the card itself just talks about how good Duke is.
There's one really weird part though.
The card says he served G.I. Joe for 30 years, but at the time the toy line was only 18 years old.
Yeah, only. That's quite old for a toy line.
So this didn't make any goddamn sense. Unless they're implying Duke was the original G.I. Joe, which he really wasn't.
Anyway, some quick fire ones now, because otherwise we're gonna be here all day.
G.I. Joe vs. Cobra. Refused commission is back. The figure is in a 2-pack with Cobra Commander now, because the card says he wants to take out the head snake personally. Spy Troops and Valor vs. Venom. Respected by his troops, turned down commission.
Though they screwed up the comic book pack version.
Because for this one, they just reprinted the Valor vs. Venom one that talks about Cobra using animal DNA to enhance their troops, while the comic book Duke is supposed to represent the character of the early 80s. Up next, most of the Duke's anniversary lines come with copies of his first file card, including the bit where he joined the army in 1967. So they don't add anything, and it even makes them very anachronistic. Some are more original though, omitting anything Vietnam related again, and focusing on how he's always in the front leading the troops. And of bloody course saying how he's turned down commissions to become an officer.
We get it, okay? He doesn't want to be king. He's the freaking Jon Snow of G.I. Joe. Talk about something else already.
Having just said all that, well, yelled all that, let's talk about movie file cards.
You want to know what's funny? You know what's hilarious?
After beating you over the head for 26 years,
26 years!
saying how he doesn't want to be an officer under any circumstances.
Movie Duke's an officer.
Yeah, he was both a captain and a major.
I can't... How could they... It's the complete antithesis of the character. I mean, this is like making Captain America the billionaire playboy of the Avengers.
Well, meet First Sergeant Major Captain Duke, I guess.
Ah!
We'll talk a little more about Movie Duke next week. For now, let's just wrap things up. So, what do all these file cards tell us about Duke, the character, if we boil it down? Well, there are some subtle hints throughout that indicate he might not want to be promoted to officer. Other than that, he comes across as a highly competent soldier who was made for the job of first sergeant. A strict but fair father figure for the troops under him. A field commander that leads from the front and commands respect. This is all perfectly fine and admirable.
And it's a bit dull, isn't it?
Duke was meant to be the perfect example of a G.I. Joe, and that makes him kinda one-dimensional. I mean, give him a character flaw or something. Like maybe make him not believe in the concept of deodorant like Beachhead, or give him a dislike for combat rations. Anything to make him more like a real person. So, that was Duke from the file cards. Heroic, but dull.
Next week, we'll end main character May by taking a look at his comic book, cartoon, and even movie characters. Well, I'll see you then, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?